You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of GHS-TV's award-winning talk show Crosstalk. I'm your host, Scarlett Simpson. Each week in this time slot, we take a look at different issues, personalities, and events that affect you and our community. Baseball, America's favorite pastime. The first officially recorded baseball game in U.S. history took place on June 19, 1846 in Hoboken, New Jersey. Since then, the sport has grown and spread across the world. Today, we are taking a look at the sport, from Little League to Major League.
If you're going to develop baseball as a whole, you got to start with the culture, you got to start with the facilities. You just had to build everything from the ground up, and that was my vision of why I started Memphis Little League. And these kids began to understand, okay, I'm in an environment where it's baseball and nothing else. I can relax and be myself.
Baseball is something that I love.
The community has bought into it. That's the signs that you say we're moving in the right direction, because if you believe in Memphis Little League, you're going to believe in the coaches and what we're trying to tell the kids, and at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Joining me now to talk about the sport's youngest players is Charles Scott, board member for the Memphis Little League. Mr. Scott, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Charlotte, for inviting me.
Well, can you tell me a little bit of the history of Little League in Memphis?
Sure, I'll be glad to. Memphis Little League has been in existence for 10 years. We just celebrated our 10th year this year. And basically our purpose is to make sure that from the urban baseball and youth that we have baseball to continue in the city of Memphis.
Well, how important is it for the community to have an organization like yours?
Well, as you know, Memphis being a football town and a basketball town, most of the youth tend to play those. And there's very few parents or coaches involved in baseball. But we know baseball is one of America's favorite sports, arguably. And also with baseball, you have an opportunity not just for the youth, for young ladies as well. So it doesn't matter how tall you are, how fast you are, anybody can play baseball.
Well, you mentioned how important it is for the youth, but can you go into detail of why it's important for youth to be involved in sports?
Yes, absolutely. Baseball, of course, being the ultimate team sport, it teaches patience. Obviously, it teaches sportsmanship. And also, again, the skill set can allow youth not only when they play Little League Baseball to go on when they have something to do in middle school, high school, and of course, there's college opportunities, and if you're good enough, on to the pros.
Well, as a representative, Mr. Scott, how does baseball affect you day to day?
Actually, I got involved in baseball over 20 years ago when my son was about 6 years old. And at that time, I put him in looking for a team for him to play T-ball or coach pitch baseball. And I found out that they did have a program in Whitehaven called Whitehaven Baseball Association. And that was great. But then they had situations where the finances came and they shut down all the baseball programs in Memphis, which left a void. And then Memphis Little League came. And the great thing about Memphis Little League is this is part of the actual Memphis Little League International that you see on TV out of Williamsport, Pennsylvania. So it gives these kids the opportunity not only to grow and develop and play within the city of Memphis, but also play other teams here in the county, throughout the state, and if you're good enough, to get on the national stage. So that's why it's important to me.
Well, even if a child doesn't play baseball down the line, what lessons can they use?
I can give you a great example. As I mentioned, I have been coaching before for about 15, 16 years. And even now, some of the first kids that I have, when I see them on school, they still call me coach. So that is important. You can serve as a role model for that child. Again, teach them the respect. And one of the things we also do as coaches is not just to teach them the game of baseball, but the game of life as well, to respect one another. We ask them about their grades. And we'll tell them, if your parents say you can't play today because you do well in school, you can't play today.
Well, you mentioned how you became involved with baseball through your son, but how did you become involved in Little League specifically?
Again, as I mentioned before, when baseball, if a financial situation became in the city of Memphis, they cut out all of baseball. There was only one baseball league in Memphis. So for over a year, we went without baseball. And I'd be neglected to mention Kerry Cobb, who is our president, and he is the founder of Memphis Little League. He actually is from Jackson, Tennessee, went to the University of Memphis. He gets all the credit for having the vision to form that league. And when he came out looking for other coaches, and I was still coaching at that time, to be part of Memphis Little League, I saw the vision that he had. In other words, give our kids an opportunity to play not only within the city, but to play the Germantowns, the Colliervilles, the Bartletts, and to play across the state. And again, if you have the opportunity to play on the national stage.
Well, Mickey Callaway, the new manager for the New York Mets, is from this area and has had so much success in baseball.
I did not know that.
Well, how does Little League pull out the potential for success in each player?
Well, I can give you an example. As a matter of fact, we actually had one of our players, 11 years old, because we're involved in Little League baseball. We had the opportunity, we hosted the hit, pitch, and run contest. He was good enough that he qualified, that he went to St. Louis for the Cardinals and finished in 3rd place. And that is something that I think that child would never forget. And of course, he lets him know and let the other players know that if they continue to work hard, they will also have that opportunity. Again, of course, being an inner city baseball, we don't get to play as much as maybe some of the other teams, but we have at least 2 players who have gone on to play in the, at Southwest Community College in Dyersburg State. And hopefully one day, someone will make that move to the pros.
Well, there are other Little League organizations in states across the U.S., but what makes Memphis's Little League different?
Again, I would say what makes Memphis Little League different is, again, if you think about it, there was a void there. And we are doing things, again, have been in place for 10 years, which I think is a long time for an urban baseball initiative. In fact, this summer, Little League Baseball actually came to us via ESPN and came and filmed our league. And we also invited folks from the Redbirds and the Mariners to come out, and we actually had an appearance on Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. So I think that makes it a little bit unique for the city of Memphis.
Well, what qualifications must be met in order for a child to become a part of the Little League?
That's a good question. First of all, I'll start with the adults. Because we're a part of Memphis Little League, we're all volunteers. You have to go through a background check. We make sure that all the coaches and volunteers are in place. And after that, any child, male, female, doesn't matter. We have groups from 5 to 6, from T-ball age, coach pitch, 7 to 8, 9 to 10, 11 to 12, and 13 to 14. So we cover the gap from 5 to 14 years old, which would take a child up to middle school and then on to high school.
Well, Mr. Scott, what representation and sponsorship does Little League Baseball have?
Right now, I would say 2 of our longest sponsors have been Dick's Sporting Goods, which is right here off of Winchester. They've been a major sponsor. Also, State Farms, Misty Rosser. They've been with us for a few years now. And from time to time, we'll get some other help. And I'd be neglected to say that also we've had help from support from the University of Memphis baseball team. They have allowed us a few years to come over there to do some training for our coaches, supplied us with some baseball, so they also been a help as well.
What do players do once they go beyond the Little League?
Well, as I mentioned, most of them, again, will go on to play middle school baseball. And believe it or not, most of them, when they get to middle school, the coaches love them because they don't have to coach them again. Most of them start all the way through middle school. Many of our players, when they get to high school, many of them are starting as freshmen, 4 years of baseball. So to me, just having that other outlet if they so choose to have it. And also, I neglect to mention that we have the young ladies, and many of the young ladies, some of the young ladies I've had are playing high school softball now.
What work is done to promote Little League in Memphis?
Well, we do have our website, www.littleleaguebaseball.com, Twitter, Instagram. You can reach us in various ways.
Well, and lastly, why do you think baseball has become so popular?
To me, baseball is a game, if you think about it, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. You don't have to be the strongest person. You don't have to be the tallest. You don't have to be the fastest. You don't even have to be a boy. You can be a young lady, and anybody can play it. And again, to me, it's the ultimate team sport, and what it teaches in life with baseball is if you get a hit 1 time out of 3, you're doing pretty good.
Well, Mr. Scott, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Hello and welcome to Cable Quiz, The academic.
Do you know how incredible it is to work at a TV station in high school?
GHS-TV is a student-run television station.
There's so many things you can do here at GHS-TV. You can be in front or behind the camera or both. You have that opportunity. There are no limits.
Where we have sports and we have news and we have entertainment. So the students here get a well-rounded view of what it's like to be in the TV field.
It's my life. It's what I want to do.
From all of us here at GHS-TV, thanks for starting your morning with us.
For more information about the Kappa program, visit ghskappa.com or call 755-7775. You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Welcome back to Crosstalk. I'm your host, Scarlett Simpson. This week we are talking baseball. Previously, we touched on the younger generation of players in Little League Baseball. Now we are going to hear about both high school and collegiate level baseball and where they go from there. Joining me now is Duke Williams, the baseball coach from Evangelical Christian School, along with Jeff Cleanthus, the athletic director and head baseball coach for Rhodes College. Mr. Cleanthus, Mr. Williams, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Williams, ECS is #1 in baseball in the state. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
What does it feel to have that kind of title?
It's pretty big, and it's awesome for the school, for as small as the school as we are. But it really shows you all the hard work all the kids put in, you know, from 8th grade to freshman year, and all the way through senior year. So the hard work and dedication coming out.
Well, you've won 6 state championships. Can you tell me about the heart of the success from both your players and you as well?
Well, our kids are really driven. They want to be successful. The baseball program at ECS has always been strong, so I'm just trying to uphold that standard. And our kids are really dedicated to putting in the work. They show up early, stay late, and really want to be successful in that aspect. And several of our kids really want to pursue that collegiately and professionally as well.
Well, Mr. Cleanthus, very often high school students move to a collegiate level of baseball. What does it take to become a part of college baseball?
I think a little bit depends on what school they're looking for and how dedicated they are as an athlete. Certainly there's levels of different colleges for baseball, and Rhodes College, for example, is Division III. There's no athletic scholarship, but it typically takes a good student athlete, which is going to be the case at most places, but certainly at a place like Rhodes College, that's really important. So,
well, what are you doing to train during your off season?
So for us at Division III, we are only allowed to work with our athletes 4 weeks in the fall and then 15 weeks in the spring. And during the off season, they get a strength and conditioning workout, but it's voluntary, so we can't make it mandatory. So that's the tough part about it. But if they want to be committed and be a champion, they need to be there every day. So,
well, this is a question for you both. How does high school baseball differ from college baseball? Mr. Williams, we'll start with you.
I'd say the biggest difference is the time put into it. In high school, you have those kids from, as soon as school gets out till 5, 6, depending on how many kids you have on the team and how much, time you have with your athletic facilities. I think the biggest is time, but we try to run ours as much as we can, like college, throwing programs, strength and conditioning programs, off-season, in-season workouts. And more now today, you're starting to see a lot of more schools run their high school programs as closely as they can to collegiate programs so well.
Well, and Mr. Cleanthus, do you agree?
Yeah, I think he made a great point. I think the one big difference, and it is time, but it's also travel. That's a big part for us. So we're doing the same basic stuff that they're doing Monday through Friday, but then we're traveling, anywhere from 4 to 12 hours on a weekend and playing 2 games on Saturday, game on Sunday. So it's 6 days a week. They get Monday off usually. So it's pretty similar to what he talks about Monday to Friday, but then the weekends are a little bit tougher, I think.
Well, Mr. Williams, how do you relate coaching high school baseball back to education?
You can really teach the kids life lessons, especially with baseball. Baseball is a game of failure, and the coach will tell you the same thing. And the same thing with life. We really try to teach our kids that if you fail, don't give up. If you're a 300 hitter, you still failed 7 times. And something doesn't go your way, keep trying until you get it. And you can really relate that to almost everything in life, and every different situation can be, pulled back to baseball.
Well, can you talk about your typical pregame and postgame locker room routines?
Really, we kind of let our kids run that themselves, as in, we tell them, some of our seniors, our leaders, what we expect. So we'll let them run through their stretching and pregame routine after they take in and out we'll bring them down. We'll talk to them just kind of what's expected, what the team we're playing tendencies are. Then after the game, we'll go over what they did right, what they did wrong, what we need to work on, and what we plan on doing at practice the next day. So just kind of touching on a little bit of everything. Well,
what can we plan to see in both of your upcoming seasons? Mr. Cleanthus.
Okay, so we came off last year. We made the NCAA tournament last year, the regionals, and we ended up beating the number 3 team in the country, the number 12 team in the country, the number 15 team in the country. So we fell one short game of the College World Series. So that's something that our goal is at Rhodes. That's been our goal for years, and we've been to the NCAA tournament 3 of the last 4 years, and we're hoping that we have a chance to win the league again, which we've won 2 out of the last 4 years, and then hopefully play in the College World Series at some point. So.
And Mr. Williams?
We plan on being competitive each and every year. We've played in the state tournament the last 3 years, won it last year. We had a big class. We lost 7 seniors that all signed to play college baseball. We have 2 this year that signed, and we're really relying on them to have that senior leadership and help carry this team, be competitive each and every week, and hopefully get back to the state tournament.
Well, I'm sure both of your teams get a lot of community support. Can you touch on that, Mr. Williams?
Yes, we with ECS, we're a small private school, but community and students and the student body really show up each and every week. I mean, it's a lot of games baseball-wise. So it's not your typical, 1 game a week with us. We play Monday through Friday, even on Saturdays, and the student support, the parent support, and the school support really makes a big difference for our kids and helps them kind of get over the hump when they get tired.
And Mr. Cleanthus?
Yeah, for us it's a little bit tougher because we don't have as many local players, but I don't know, after hearing how great his program is, maybe we need a few more ECS players at Rhodes coming up. But our program is made up of all over the country. We have like 17, 18 states covered in our program. So we don't get the same support. I mean, our student body gives us some good support, and we get a lot of parents coming in to watch the games, but it's a little bit different when it's not a local situation. So.
Well, Mr. Cleanthus, can you talk about the dedication it takes to play baseball?
Yeah, so at Rhodes, I mean, it's if they choose to come play baseball, it's a tough deal. I mean, it's the academics are really tough at Rhodes. Our kids they're expected to do well both academically and athletically. Every now and again, last year was our first player that we had drafted in the MLB draft, so we're excited about that, and we're hoping that that's where the program goes going further. But we certainly have many people going on to med school, law school. I mean, that's really what they're doing, and that's what he's talking about, life lessons. I mean, we're setting them up for success in their future for sure. So.
Well, Mr. Williams, do you have any advice for those interested in playing baseball?
I like telling our kids baseball is a game. Whatever you put into it is what you can get out of it. So if you plan on playing it for a long time, it takes hard work and dedication. I mean, long hours, early mornings, late nights. And if you can do that and stay dedicated to it, then I think you have a really good chance of taking that and making a career out of it.
And Mr. Cleanthus?
Oh, for that, yeah. I mean, it's just there's nothing better than playing sports in the high school and college level. It really gives these students a sense of pride and learn how to be good leaders. And baseball is one of those sports, and he said it perfectly. I mean, if you're failing 7 out of 10 times, you're making all conference, and so it really helps. That portion. And then the other part for baseball especially, but all sports, how much work it takes off the field, just working on the field, taking care of the field, cleaning the dugouts. I mean, it really, these kids come out of it and they're better people.
Well, Mr. Cleanthus, Mr. Williams, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us.
We have to take another break. When we come back, we will talk with a representative from Memphis's own minor league baseball team, the Memphis Redbirds. Stay with us.
We just finished dinner and it was time for homework. He hates homework.
It makes no sense.
I don't know how he finds anything in his backpack.
I can't find my backpack.
I couldn't even read his handwriting.
Holding the pencil makes my hand hurt.
I know he's bright.
Why is it so hard for me?
He's just gotta
trying as
try a
hard
little
as
harder.
I can.
When you can see learning and attention issues from their side, you can be on their side. Go to understood.org, a free online resource with support and tools to help your child thrive.
You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Welcome back to Crosstalk. I'm your host, Scarlett Simpson. Previously, we heard about Major League Baseball. We will hear now from Memphis's own minor league baseball team, the the Memphis Redbirds. Joining me now is Craig Unger, President and General Manager / minority owner for the Memphis Redbirds. Mr. Unger, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks, Scarlett. Thanks for having me.
Well, the Memphis Redbirds is known throughout the community, but for our younger audience, what is the Redbirds' history?
Well, there's been almost near continuous minor league baseball in Memphis since the 1800s. There's a fascinating history of minor league baseball. The Redbirds themselves have only been around since 1998. That was their first season. Played at Tim McCarver Park for a couple of years, and then moved over to AutoZone Park starting in 2000.
Well, can you talk about the importance of minor league baseball as a whole?
You know, minor league baseball is designed to support the major league side. One thing that is sort of a misnomer is that there's nothing really minor about it. These are professional athletes. The players who are here, this is their job. This is their livelihood. They are fighting to get a chance to go to the major league level. That's the dream. Their dream is to put on a St. Louis Cardinals uniform, a New York Mets uniform, that big league uniform, and have their dreams fulfilled. And that's really what it is. Now, from a business side, from what minor league baseball is and what the Redbirds are, it's community. We're here to help support the community and be the community's baseball team.
Well, who are some of the biggest players that have come out of your team?
Well, since 1998 or so, I think some of the biggest names, the biggest one probably everybody knows is Albert Pujols. Actually, only played here a very, very short amount of time, but was here. Yadier Molina, from the Cardinals as well. Adam Wainwright. Most recently this year, you've had some of the top prospects come through. Alex Reyes was here last year and, will be pitching for the Cardinals next year. Luke Weaver. But this is not only just the Redbirds. From other teams, you get an opportunity to see the top prospects come through for other teams. For instance, Chris Bryant, who was the top prospect for the Cubs, started his, 12, 16 games that he played in the minor leagues a couple of years ago. His first couple of games were here in Memphis. So that national spotlight was on us from, that standpoint. So this is not just about future Cardinals, it's the opportunity to see the future baseball players across Major League Baseball.
Well, you mentioned how the Redbirds are a feeder team for the St. Louis Cardinals. Has that always been the case?
Since the Redbirds' inception, yes. But when you look back at that long history of minor league baseball here in Memphis, we've been affiliates before for the Astros, for the Royals, for the Montreal Expos for a short time. And then there were other times, in fact, the New York Mets for a while as well, under the Memphis Blues. And then there was a long period of time when minor league baseball was independent, and the farm league teams, they were all independent teams. They would sign their own players, and in fact, they would sell those players to the major leagues whenever the major leagues needed players. That's, sort of looking back into the early days of the minor leagues of the 50s and 40s and 30s and, so forth.
Well, with the stadium where it is, the area around has improved. Was this a planned effect?
Yeah, I think, sports sort of in general, and when you look at what stadiums do and have the opportunity to bring more people down, to urban areas or other areas, there's an effect on that, and it's more restaurants pop up. Those are tourist destinations, and you look between where AutoZone Park is, and then even where the FedEx Forum is, and that area in between, about all the different things there. Amenities are a big thing for when people want to live in areas, especially in urban areas in downtown. And being able to, walk to AutoZone Park, walk to FedEx Forum, and then all the other things that pop up around it. I think that was definitely part of the intention whenever AutoZone Park was built, to take an area that was, largely not being used. It was not a great area, and to revitalize that. And that's a lot of times what, that's the effect that stadiums have.
Well, Mr. Unger, just this past year, you won the Pacific Coast Championship for the 3rd time. What does this mean for the community and the Redbirds?
Well, winning the championship, for us, for the league, one, it shows what the quality of prospects are that are going to be going up to St. Louis. So I think it's a testament to what we call the farm system there of all of the players that come up through the Cardinal system. So the future is bright for the Cardinals. For the team and for the community, I think it's a great rallying point. It's a great rallying, something to kind of, hang the hat on. That there's a championship team, and that for us, it gives us a great opportunity to sell more tickets. It puts us in front of a lot more people, and it gets sort of the casual baseball fan interested and involved in what's going on.
Well, the travel schedule is grueling. What kind of family support system is needed for the players?
Well, by and large, the players, I would say 50% of them are single or, without kids. Because a lot of them are relatively young. I mean, for a AAA baseball player to be much older than 24, 25 years old is pretty old. A handful of them do have kids, and it is difficult. I mean, when you look at a 140 game schedule that we have and spending about 80 days of the summer on the road, staying in hotels, it's a lot of times the wives, girlfriends, and family, we get a chance to know them pretty well at the ballpark because they spend a lot of time here in Memphis as part of that support system. It's a lot of family support. Even from an organization standpoint, we try and do things to keep sort of the families involved in things that are going on, get to know other parts of the organization, get to know us so that if they have an issue, a problem, or something that they need help or advice on while they're here in Memphis, that we can help support that.
Well, the team is striving for a good year. How do you keep them motivated?
Well, it's a lot of it's on the field manager on that. But what we try and do is, from a services standpoint, they spend a lot of time at the ballpark. So we try and make their time there where, you're in a pretty, small clubhouse, and that's where you're spending from, noon until 10 o'clock at night there every day. Try and get them good quality meals, some other services, some other amenities, and stuff coming in there. And then when they're not playing, to be able to sort of, give them their time and their space to sort of be away from the ballpark.
Well, how do you think your team is supported by Memphis?
I think, Memphis does a great job of supporting, the Redbirds and all the sports really in town. We've had great attendance growth over the past couple of years. That's been continuing, and we see that trend continuing. And I think having a winning season is helpful. But for us, a lot of times what we're selling is, and from a ticket sales standpoint and everything else, we're selling a lot of the other stuff, the fireworks nights on Saturday nights. We're selling the bobblehead promotions, all of the other entertainment that's sort of going on around the ballpark. And sometimes it's like, oh, by the way, there's a baseball game going on over here as well, because a lot of times we don't know who our players are, who we're going to have and who's going up and down. So our thing is, hey, come down and enjoy the fun that we have at the ballpark.
Well, Mr. Unger, thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
As you can see, baseball players, coaches, and supporters are keeping this sport alive through many different organizations. I would like to thank all my guests for providing insight about what has kept this sport as popular as it is today. Remember, Crosstalk can be seen each week at 9:30 a.m. and 7 p.m. on Mondays and Thursdays, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 a.m. and 12 p.m. and 7 p.m. on Sundays. For more information on our programming, please check us out on the web at GHS-TV, where we're streaming live 24 hours a day. You can also check us out on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Scarlett Simpson. From all of us at GHS-TV, thank you for watching Crosstalk, and I hope to see you again.